Well, good morning, fellow seekers, travelers, pilgrims, or good evening or good afternoon, wherever you might be. Um, I was just going through the chat, and it looks like Julie lost her dear husband, and I know that there's um, a lot of goodwill and compassion, and dare I say, love in the chat today for Julie, and loss is never easy, right? Unless, of course, the person that you're losing was just an absolute utter pain in the ass. But even then, sometimes in death we can find even the most redemptive, if remote, quality in a person to somehow remember the best part of them, whatever that might be. And for some people, that can be very challenging. But in this case, we pass no judgment. And Julie, we wish you nothing but peace moving forward, and not just with your emotions and your heart, but also the things that come after a person passes away, and all the uh, details and clerical stuff and all the things you have to file, and that's not an easy part of it, because you have to engage another part of your brain uh, while you're going through the emotional state that you're in. So anyway, hang there, Julie. We all love you, and we know that you have lots of beautiful animals around you to remind you about what's important in life. So with that, why don't we get to the weather, and see what we can make of what's going on here. By the way, I was with my guy, quite frankly, last night for about an hour, longest I've ever been on a show. And I really, really like Frank. He's just he's a good dude. He's a good dude. He's a good interviewer. He's got a quality program, and and he's an Aries, and he just he carved this thing out with himself, and of course with the help of his brother and some close friends. And I think he's doing a terrific job. And if I can ever be on his show, well, when I get back in the show again at some point, uh, it'll be a it'll be a blessing. So anyway, great show last night. Thank you, Frank. He'll be at the Yankee game during the eclipse. The Yankees, they're not slowing down for the eclipse. Hell no, not the Yankees. Okay. Don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoy the content. If you have subscribed, you may want to resubscribe again. As we know, YouTube likes to play a little whack-a-mole with subscribers, right? Hi, I've subscribed. No, you haven't. Hi, I've subscribed. No, you haven't. Let's beat him at whack-a-mole. You're the mole. You're not the whacker. All right. Oh, yeah. If you feel like it, you can also buy me a cup of coffee. And for everybody that has purchased a coffee or two for me, I want to thank you for your kindness and your coffee, your metaphoric coffee. Appreciate it. All right. So some things have changed since yesterday, incrementally, namely the moon, because now we have another object in square besides Mercury, Pluto. And I wonder if we're going to have some more Earth movement today. I wonder if we'll have some more Earth movement. To me, this angle is seismic, right? So we're in a square. Jupiter, Uranus, Taurus is the Earth, terra firma, and Jupiter amplifies the shocking reverberations of the Jupiter Taurus conjunction, or the conjunction itself. And here comes the moon in the electrically static yet detached sign of Aquarius, coming in here and squaring this thing up. Also, in the same bandwidth, we're also dealing with this whole idea of homes, the housing market. Who gets a home? Temporary housing, group housing, and we're into the conversation around our friends, the migrants, our new countrymen and women. Welcome to America. Get to know us. Get to know us first before you do anything rash. We should just have a welcoming party. We should have a welcoming, but it shouldn't be a typical welcoming. Like, let's take it out of the hands of Catholic Charities. Like, why don't we just have a big barbecue down here in Texas and give them a hearty Texas barbecue greeting? I can see this now. This is a brilliant idea. So hear me out. Got a big barbecue. I don't know. Think of like the Dan the Green or one of these mega concerts from the 70s. Maybe we could have it at Jerry World, or better yet, the Cotton Bowl, because it's got an open area, right? We have this big festival, and all of our new friends are here, and they get to see all these Texans. And of course, Texas is an open carry state. Now it is constitutional carry. So we would show them what Texans can do. See, we can carry guns here. And there are quite a few of us that carry guns. You see this thing on our hip? Yeah, I'm sure you understand that that's a gun. And isn't it great to be in Texas? And welcome to the state. Now, oh, here, have some barbecue. And they look around at each other and go, oh, maybe we should behave ourselves here. They're nice people, but we don't want to cross them. Maybe this should be the strategy behind the migrant party. Show them some meat and bread, and also show them that you are not a weak person or a weak society. Let them get the message of both. I think this might work. This might work. A little bit of intimidation and fear, and a little bit of hospitality. I think there's a winning formula there. Anyway, this is one of those days. This is one of those days. And it's also a day where, just in general, again, we talked about the moon and this idea of the home or security. And where are people with that, right? Where are you? Do you feel grounded, or do you feel like you're an astronaut just hanging out in this planet for a limited period of time? And it's one of those days. I would say that the energy around this is displaced. This is a displacement. But again, with the moon, you can step back and go, well, I am a stranger in a strange land. And that's it. Right? I mean, there can be some power in being a stranger in a strange land. The outsider has the ability to observe and to make connections and have perceptions that people that are ingrained in the culture don't. They can't do it. They can't do it because they're indoctrinated into their codes, they're indoctrinated into their rituals, they're indoctrinated into everything about that culture. But being the outsider allows you to step back and see things from a different perspective. The only challenge with being an outsider is alienation, which goes along with it. It's a really interesting dance between being sort of on the outside and observational and alienated, and then crossing that line and losing one's perspective, and then joining in and becoming part of the culture in general. And I think this is just me as an American. That's always been my struggle in a lot of ways, because I've always felt like an outsider in some ways in this country. Like when people were making money hand over fist in the 80s and up through the 90s, I wasn't. Like my personal trajectory and arc was in a very different direction. So I couldn't relate to the culture. I couldn't relate to Reaganism. I couldn't relate to it. It wasn't like I was a Democrat or anything. I just couldn't relate to it. Right. So I always felt like a bit of an outsider. And at the same time, I live here and there are good things about living here. So I've been working on sort of being this kind of spy who came in from the cold, and doing my best to wrap my arms around the things that do matter and do count and are part of the American story to the best of. I wasn't even born here. I was born in another country, but that's a different thing altogether. But this is one of those energies of displacement. Now, the good news is that we have the moon advancing here by degree through the day and night, no matter where you are, and it's getting closer to this Mercury, which is retrograde. And I think from a metaphoric place, individually, it's helpful to remind you of where you do come from, and remind you of some of the qualities inherent in you that are not always reflected or demonstrated in the culture at large, or even in your immediate like if I walk around out here where I live or drive around, nobody knows who the fuck I am. And I'm okay with it, right? I'm okay with it because I have an ample enough opportunity and blessing to like share this platform with you. But not everybody has that, right? Not everybody has the ability or has the connection, or the confluence to do that. And so again, it can be very difficult walking around in kind of normie world, and trying to remember who you are in the midst of normie world. But this is one of those days that I think you can manage that. You can connect with that and do it in a way where you you don't have to stand out, but at the same time, there you remember kind of these authentic parts of who you are, which to some extent has separated you from your own culture and your own family. And it actually might be refreshing for uh, other people to understand that. So pay close attention to conversations today where you don't have to wave a banner or wave a flag or have a badge on your chest and say I am this. But if you have an opportunity to be in conversation with somebody else, don't be afraid to tap into your, I guess, for lack of a better term, authentic emotion, or authentic self, right? Because it's one of those days where you can connect with people that may not understand who you are, or don't even kind of see you apart from all the other people and objects in the landscape. I mean, this is one of those days where you can have a very interesting connection, right? And it's this retrograde. The other thing too here, and I am I'm look, we Julie just lost her husband, and a month ago, I lost my mother, uh, and we've just come through this It's not over by any stretch, but we've just come through this major period of alienation and isolation and families being nuked, atomized because of these weird arbitrary decisions and programming and all this shit, right? Um, and keep in mind that life is short. It's a lot short. I know, and I know it's a cliche, but I mean, just ask Julie. Life is short. And this is again one of those days where the retrograde Mercury sextiling this moon, if you have an opportunity, and I've talked about this before, to mend a fence or to forgive, forget, and we're coming into that Venus conjunction with the Venus conjunction right there with Neptune, right? It's a little bit past. Venus is at that anaretic degree. It's at 29 Pisces. So we're still in that, that kind of compassionate, empathic, dissolved conjunction. And it's sort of like this last chance in a lot of ways. This is a very interesting degree of Venus. A very interesting degree, especially given kind of what we're discussing here. Because when it moves into Aries, boy, it's a very different Venus, isn't it? It's much more about the immediacy of the connection with another. Because that's Venus and Aries. It's immediate, right? We want it now. And if you look at the transition, I mean, you could theoretically like kickstart or reignite these relationships that have been fractured. And with this Venus Neptune conjunction, you're not going to get another time. Like you may get it next year. Let me see, 2025. Yeah, you'll get it next year. It'll be the last Venus Neptune conjunction before Neptune goes into Aries. So it's not like you won't have another opportunity, but you won't have Mercury retrograding in Aries and coming in and sextiling the moon, because Mercury in Aries is all about, the individual, my idea, my thought. This is how I think. This is how I need to communicate. And retrograde, you're going back. You're going back and reconnecting with Mercury retrograde. So this is a very important day, very important time. We'll get it one more time next year, but not with this alignment. Not with a Mercury retrograde in Aries in a nice sextile with the moon in Aquarius, which can be very non-attached. I would say take advantage of it. If you have something to say to somebody and it's coming from a place of compassion, empathy, and forgiveness, but you have to be unattached to it. And that's why we have this moon in Aquarius, which is really good. You don't have to get attached to to the outcome. You've done your part. Let it go. The ball is in their court. By and large, I like the energy of today, even though we are dealing with displacement. This does to me look a lot like more examples of the oncoming seismic shift in how we live, where we live, and who lives with us. Because we all know that the nanny state wants to tell us what to eat and where to drive, how far to drive. By the way, the bottom is falling out on the EV car market. It's bad. Really bad. People can't afford the damn things. And yet maybe that's part of it, right? Like maybe only a select few will be able to have the damn EV cars. Everybody else will have to be in one of these self-driving cars. Maybe that's all part of it. But if you're a company, you can't hang your hat on making this transition from gasoline and pistons and timing belts to, electric, your company is going to fucking collapse unless it's subsidized like the farming community. So, what else do we have here? So we got this, and I do like this Chiron sextile to the moon, because the ability here with Chiron and Mercury, as Mercury continues to move backwards, is to allow this energy to be a bit more vulnerable. It doesn't mean that you have to be weak. And there's a difference between being vulnerable and weak. The big difference. You can admit your vulnerability. Um, and now I think about a time in my life where I did, and somebody just crushed me because of it. So I have to rethink this a little bit. I have to rethink this. You can, you can. Here's what I would do. Okay, I would address a situation where you feel vulnerable, but you don't admit that you're vulnerable. Does that make sense to you? Right? Like you know that what you're saying or doing will bring up a feeling of, oh gee, if I say this or do this, the last time this happened, I got crushed like a bug. Um, I think that there's some strength in going there. Just don't tell people you're going there. That's what I would do. Don't announce, "Oh, well, I feel really vulnerable." Oh, good. They feel vulnerable. Oh, good. I'll take advantage of that shit. Uh, you could go there. Just don't announce it. Just don't put a billboard on your head because I'm sorry, but we do have to look after our own self-interest. So there's a fine line there between expressing and saying the thing that makes you feel a bit vulnerable versus broadcasting that you're vulnerable. Does that make sense? Don't broadcast you're vulnerable. But if you have to cross that threshold inside of you, then by all means. I hope that makes sense. Um yeah, I'm not going to get into the situation. What else do we have here? Venus is about to go, it's sextiling Pluto now. Tomorrow when it goes into Aries, boy, we're gonna have a hot sextile. Get some hot sextile with Venus Pluto right there. So that's passionate, right? That's passionate. There's passion in the air. I mean, it's springtime. Even with all of the doom and the gloom and the monster eclipse and all the other stuff that goes along, it's springtime. And springtime brings feelings of fertility and potency and all the things that go along with spring. So tomorrow we move into our relationship with the season. And it starts with a bang. Venus sextile Pluto. Um, what else do we have? And then we have Mars and Saturn coming in here and starting the sextile Jupiter Uranus. I mean, I think here in this position, Mars is creative. And so Saturn brings form to creation. If you are working on something that you need to finish, I think this is a good time to do that. It's a very good time because when Mars and Saturn conjunct, it becomes almost like a full stop, right? So whether it's a report or a project or a book or whatever, put in the time, effort, and the sweat to get it done, and you will reap the benefit and the reward as a result of it. Another thing here with Mars and Saturn, get your ducks in a row, right? Get your ducks in a row so that if something happens that is unplanned or unexpected, you don't have to depend on Saturnian forces to help you get through the crisis or the experience. So this is a reminder to everybody: get your ducks in a row and keep your ducks in a row. Okay, let's get into our True Hemp Science star of the day. Today was an interesting choice. It came down to two. Came down to two people. There's our banner. So if you are interested in some of the best CBD that you can find on the internet, go to our friends at truehempscience.com. My buddy Chris, who is we're gonna and we keep we're like these sliding doors. Like he wanted to come on Sunday night. I'm like, oh, I'm not doing a show Sunday night, and he was supposed to be on, I think about a week ago, and he couldn't make it because he had this uh, call meeting that he had to jump into. So we're going to get him on, and I do want him specifically to talk about the new products that he has, which are outstanding. But everything there is high quality, really super high quality, organically sourced hemp products, and he has internal products and external products as well. He's got a really nice CBD salve that you can put on, and what else can I tell you about it? He oversees everything from soup to nuts. So he's involved in every part of the process, including being there and being able to answer all your questions about CBD. So all you got to do is type in 15MINS, and you order $100 or more, and you'll get your free goodie bag with a bunch of really interesting little products. And trust me, you will enjoy some of those little interesting products that come your way. And $150 more get you free shipping, and there's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. So there you go, truehempscience.com for all of your CBD needs. And our True Hemp Science star of the day is none other than I should have like a True Hemp Science star of the day jingle or something, lead in music. El Chapo. You know what's really weird? Like when you look at this guy, it's like this guy was a kid at one point in time. You can almost see it in his face. He was a kid, a poor child, right? And then through life circumstance and watching Scarface over and over again, he's able to rise up and make something of himself in this world. El Chapo is a strange story in a lot of ways. But let's get into his chart. Capricorn rising, of course, people with Capricorn rising, they're all about the business, right? It's a very unsentimental ascendant and approach to the world. And if you're Capricorn rising or you have Saturn in the first house, you have to grow up fast. You have to grow up fast, mature early. In many cases, you wind up being the absentee parent at a young age. It's not an easy rising sign. It's while everybody else is out having fun, right? You're having to do the dirty work early on and learn how to be independent. And I guess with somebody like El Chapo, who ultimately becomes one of the largest drug dealers on the planet, um, I suppose that's going to work for you, right? Because you're going to look at the top and say, how do we get to the top? So where does he come from? Well, that's his fourth house. And you can see down here with the South Node in Taurus that his home life probably wasn't the best. And he wanted to get out. He's got Mercury there, and it's in Aries, right? And his IC is Aries. So the Aries fourth house, a full Aries fourth house. Like, okay, so for instance, if you just have Aries on your fourth house cusp, but no planets in there, right? Your living space, your living quarters are going to be kind of spare and utilitarian because that's how Aries operates, right? Or you live in a hunting lodge, or you live on an army base, right? I mean, that the kind of Spartan quality of Aries dominates the fourth house. Um, and that's where his fourth house starts. And he has a Mercury there in Aries. And he, I think his goal is to get out, and especially with the South Node in Taurus, which I think in this regard is poor, right? It's poor. There's poverty there, I think, with that South Node in Taurus. And then on the other side of the chart, what do we have? We have the true node in Scorpio. And what does Scorpio represent? It's the underworld. And it's drugs, and it's sex, and it's power. Scorpio is also magic. It's deep psychology. So in order for El Chapo to escape this place of poverty with the South Node in Taurus, he's got to get up here, right? He's got to get up here and access the power of Scorpio, which we've just all kind of dissected. Neptune, which also rules drugs as well as spirituality, is here in Scorpio, and it is conjunct his midheaven. Now, his midheaven is in Libra. And I'll tell you what brings El Chapo down is he's too trusting. The guy who rose to the top of the Sinaloa cartel, basically a rags to riches story, his downfall is he's too fucking trusting. And I think Neptune plays a bit of a role with that, especially with the opposition with Mercury. And he's seduced by beauty, right? So the whole thing with him is he winds up kind of falling in love with a telenovela star and starts to, I'm not sure what she was doing with the guy. She was banging him, or I don't, but she knew him and he was in love with her because of what he saw on TV. And I think this is very Libra up at the top of the chart, or like beauty. And he gets entangled in this weird three-way relationship with, I forget her name, somebody will know it, and Sean Penn. There's this great documentary that she's involved with where she is trying to leverage her position as a telenovela star by chatting up Sean Penn and starting a relationship with Sean Penn. And I think Sean Penn also banged her. And, Sean Penn is, oh, El Chapo? And she's, sure. And she said, yeah, if you want, do you want to do an interview with El Chapo? And Sean Penn is like, oh yeah, I want to do an interview. Yeah, my Spicoli. So they do, right? But this interview is the downfall of El Chapo. Sean Penn is a spook. He's a spook. And you can see this in his chart. He's got Uranus over here in the 7th house. Sean Penn happens to be a Leo, by the way. Danger zone. And what happens? This chick betrays him. And eventually he winds up going to prison because they get a fix on him. Frankly, I'm surprised Sean Penn is still alive. Unless, of course, it's just a production. and the whole thing was a show arrest. I don't know. With Neptune on the midheaven, it's hard to determine some of these things. But that's literally what happens to him. He gets betrayed. And you can see this with Uranus in the seventh house. You can, I can, but he couldn't. He didn't see it coming. I think he wants to sue Netflix now. Good luck with that. He's got Mars in Gemini in the fifth house, and he has Moon in Gemini also. So when you get into Gemini, you can bifurcate your brain, your emotions, your being, which I think if you're going to be a drug dealer and kill a bunch of people, you probably have to. You probably have to develop a highly advanced form of bifurcating your brain, right? So I had to kill that person for the greater good. It was just all about the greater good. And Mars in Gemini is quite restless. And when you link it up with Venus and the sun in Aries, that's a lot of energy. It's a lot of energy. And he's got this moon sextile Uranus and the moon trine Jupiter, even though Jupiter's at the end of Virgo. So he's got big plans, right? Big plans, big dreams, big goals, big ambitions, as typified by the moon Jupiter trine. And he's I would say he's also unusual in terms of like okay, I am not here to turn El Chapo into a nice guy, but I would say that there would be moments where his expression of his emotions would be unusual and would not typically be associated with somebody who's the head of a major cartel who traffics in drug, murder, and money laundering. That's what you get with this moon sextile to Uranus. And that he would have at times very unusual kinds of expressions of his. And again, I think it's his bifurcated part, right? Like he's probably already bifurcated by the time he rises to power. Like you have to be, and it's in the chart. We have a Mars Saturn opposition, Saturn's authority, and he is very much engaged in a battle against authority. Now, on the other hand, he also understands what it's like to be an authority. Capricorn rising, there's Saturn, the ruling planet. Aries, do whatever it takes. Join Saturn, and you become the authority. You become the man. But in order to become the man, you got to take on the man. So whoever that man was, whether it was the guy who was El Chapo before El Chapo, or whether it was his father or whoever, right? This is that Mars-Saturn opposition. And Saturn is real close to that 12th house, which we all know is the prison life, right? And this is friends. This is the friend group, and there's Saturn there. Not a lot of friends. Like you can't have a lot of friends if you're going to be the head of a cartel. I think it would make you vulnerable. And at the end of the day, that's what happened. We were talking about vulnerable. He was vulnerable. He fell in love with the wrong little chica. And she set him up. And now he's doing time. He's got a Mercury-Pluto trine in his chart. So he's shrewd. Very shrewd, psychologically adept, can read people very easily, right? You have to. In his line of work, you have to. You got to size somebody up. Mercury-Uranus square. Again, that's unexpected. That's unexpected, like doing things that are off script. And sometimes that can be helpful, I suppose. At other times, it could be disruptive and land you in a place where you don't want to be. Right? Like I don't care. I love this girl, and yeah, let's go have he probably felt like being interviewed by Sean Penn was not just being accepted, but arriving, and that's where you get into some of the vanity issues around the fifth house, which is ruled by Leo, right? Pluto, when is Penn's birthday? Is he towards the end of Leo? I think he is. Let me just check. August 17th. So that's the end of Leo. And let's just go back here. It's going to be what, around 26 Leo? Around 26 Leo? Let's see. So Sean Penn's son is right on El Chapo's Pluto in the eighth house. There's Sean Penn right there. He's gonna fuck him up. And Pluto in the eighth house is powerful, right? It's the underworld. It's in its own house. It's in its own house. So yeah, you got crossed up there. And that's the guy. 26 Leo, right on 2 degrees off his Pluto. The square of the moon. He got double crossed. And he didn't see it coming. All right. There's your True Hemp Science star of the day. El Chapo, whose son, by the way, is now running the cartel, which is kind of, I guess, somewhat interesting. All right. I want to thank everybody for being here. We are going to be moving over to 15 minutes, and we're going to have at the top of the show, we're going to get into this whole idea of Gen Z versus the migrants, which I'm going to explore as a cultural idea. But that's not the only thing we're going to talk about. I would feel remiss if I didn't talk about the slaughter of the kitchen in Gaza. And I know we're going to have Russ on the show tomorrow, and we had lined up a bunch of stuff around this to talk about. But I also know that Russ wants to talk about Riley Strain and the Smiley Face Killers. So I just want to cover this base just in case Russ and I don't talk about it tomorrow. All right. Thanks for being here. And come join us at 12 noon tomorrow with the Friday Farcast and our good friend Russ Winter. In the meantime, use your head in order to discern what's real, your heart to accept what's possible. Have a blessed day. Chataria, you're the best. I'll see you guys. Bye for now.